So I was gonna wait until tomorrow to make this particular video, but this is something that's been like rattling around in my brain for like 5 years now. I've finally cracked it, and I do already have a slew of videos that I have prepared for tomorrow anyway. So with that being said, I'm going to talk about this today. Uh, Starting off, let's start off. So, like I said, this has been rattling around in my brain for like 5 years, right? And what exactly is this? It is this, which is that we can take slime mold and we can utilize it to solve problems, right? Like we can use it to solve maze problems, optimization problems. Like this is a good example, right? Where it's just, like literally optimizing like routes and the interstate system. We can utilize. So the bottom line to me is that this is the like level one of intelligence, we could call it, right? This is organization, it's self-organization, it's structured self-organization, and it's structured self-organization that can be utilized to solve problems. Meets every academic definition of intelligence that I could possibly think of, right? So to me, this is the baseline. So level one, right? But then so like there's stuff before level one. Like what is before level one? How do you get to level one, right? And so that's what I've essentially worked through here. And then so I introduce this concept, which is one layer before emergence of a proto intelligence from entropy, compression, and harmonics. And so I present this particular framework, and then the way that I break this down, you can read the abstract and the introduction, the full introduction, but I define the framework and I posit that proto intelligence is defined as a structured, adaptive, and goal seeking behavior, and it can arise from the interplay of just three fundamental forces: entropy, which is the measure of randomness and potential driving diversity in a system; compression, which is the shaping force of attractors, channeling entropy into structured patterns; and harmonics, the resonant alignment that stabilizes these patterns into adaptive configurations. And together, these elements form a trinity, one layer beneath intelligence itself. My hypothesis is that intelligence does not require consciousness. Instead, it emerges from local interactions, feedback loops, and recursive memory trails within a dynamic system. So, to test this, we conducted simulations using coupled oscillators, harmonic attractors, and controlled noise, observing the interactions under which self organization and adaptive behavior arise. Let's just go through the experiments. The very first experiment is it's entropy within a system, right? That entropy is one way, and we always see this, right? But so I wanted to see what happens if you apply entropy and you put an attractor in that system. And then when you put an attractor into the system, it's an interesting pattern, right? Entropy is decreasing, but it's not decreasing steadily and stably. There's like an oscillation to it, right? And then so I'm like, okay, that's interesting, and that attractors can do that. So to me, this challenges the assumption that entropy is actually a one-way street. And then so I asked the question, can we balance entropy with harmonics and resonance? And then so that's the question, the next question that I experiment with here. Can I balance this system? Can I make entropy a two-way street rather than a one-way street? So very simplistically, I do that and I just add two attractors rather than one. And then cool. I don't know if you've ever seen entropy as a wave function before, but here it is. And then flat out, I'm just measuring entropy with two attractors, right? And very simplistically, I measure the entropy of the system, I put two attractors in there, and we get this effect. And so super cool. Like, all right, entropy is more of a wave function and we can stabilize it, right? And then so this, like the final entropy being measured as a negative, I assume that that's a calculation error, because you can see it's going like, it's heavy around the edges here, right? And then so I just assume it's a calculation error because of that. And then phase coherence is like super high. And then so I'm like, okay, that's interesting overall, right? Let me try to play around with this. So I play around with it at different frequencies, right? And then so here's the entropy wave at a frequency of 1.4. And then I measure it with the Fourier transform, so we can measure that as well. And we see like the wave and the measurements coming out in the Fourier transform too. The shape is essentially taking shape, right? We can see the shape that occurs within this particular system, and we can see that this system is very specific, like self-stabilizing itself, right? And then it's stabilizing the entropy to a like what ends up being very stable numbers, and like when you take out the average, even though you have those oscillations. Super cool, right? And so I want to see like, can I like, what happens if we increase the frequency again? So let's go from 1.4 to 1.6, and then let's zoom in on like a portion of what's going on here, right? Because this is counterintuitive. Like this, like up front, this is already proving something, right? Which is that entropy is not one way within a closed system. If I introduce resonance, harmonic resonance into the system, I can balance the entropy of the system. So if you haven't observed that already, here you go. Right? And then we can see I'm doing this and at 1.6, and then we zoom in and we can see that definitely there's wave harmonics at play here, right? With the entropy wave, and that's what occurs, and we get this really cool entropy wave there. And then so the next thing I want to do is like, can I break it, right? So can I put like, what happens if I just put like, so I do inject the harmonics, but then I also inject just constant noise into the system, and essentially it breaks, right? This is too fuzzy to get a measurement. We see the fuzziness all around, and then in our Fourier transform, it doesn't measure anything really. Like there's no shape that it's measuring, just this little tiny blip, right? The tiniest of blips, which wouldn't be anything, and I think enough for anything to pick up on, right? And then we see here, like the system is no longer able to control the entropy of the system, right? And it's no longer able to measure the actual coherence, the phase coherence. Like it's the system is lost, right? Entropy has our noise has beaten it out. But okay, let me see. Like, what if I strengthen those attractors, right? Let's put more harmonics. Like, can harmonics beat back constant noise? Is the next test that I want to see. So let me crank up and give harmonics more power. And then boom, it 100% can do so, right? And pretty like handily and significantly, it just by I like turn up the resonance dial, and it's able to beat back the noise dial, right? And then you can see here we get a beautiful Fourier transform on the right? And then our entropy wave is stabilizing, and then this is our waves in general are stable. Interesting dynamics close to zero, right? And then so that's interesting what happens there, but we get stabilization overall within the system, and then it's compressing the noise down. Right? You can see like that's exactly what happens. Is it just like is like compressing the noise out of the system, and so super cool, right? And then so let me do like so. I want to know like what's the like kind of the exact break point of the coherence here, right? And then so I consider here like so we've got still like high phase coherence, and then our entropy is like still below 1 in this particular system with these phase attractors and this much noise, right? And then so to me, I set the benchmark, and it's kind of an arbitrary benchmark, but I set it to let me see what happens when I want to break that, right? So like the one barrier. So from 0.99 to above 1, and then so I'm just like I'm changing like a very low number here, right? So I'm going from 0.3885 to 0.3886. And then very specifically, there is where you see a massive jump, and then you see a massive spike in decoherence. So like essentially from like a coherent system to where like the system is able to fight back against the noise to where the noise starts to overpower the system, and it's like very like I mean it's very slight, right? 0.3885, and I'll do it again. and then we can see it goes back, right, 0.991, and then so it like and it smooths comparatively, like just and nothing else I can do. Like I can adjust these numbers by like 5 below it or like 5 above it, and it won't be as drastic as adjusting from 0.3885 to 0.3886, and it took some dialing to get here. Honest, that I'm cutting out some experiments within this. But then, so I dial it, right? We're proving that entropy can be stabilized within the system and it can overcome noise within the system. And so I've essentially proven that out to myself as far as I can. Now let me do like a real world experiment with it, right? And so by that, essentially I create a system, like a very complex universe simulation here, and then this is like my baseline universe, right? And then so it's like a literal like universe simulation, right? Where I put in the agents, and then I measure different effects like clustering, path stability, oscillatory stability, structure propagation, and their memory loops. In this instance, this is my baseline test, right? So my expectation is that we will not get emergent behavior that will emerge from here, and that's exactly what happens, right? There's no emergent behavior detected. See, emergence detected false, and then emergence score 0 out of 10, right? Like absolutely nothing, because there's no communication between these agents. There's nothing going on in this system, right? It's just here's a bunch of noise, and then put some agents in there. Is really what happens, and okay, like that's expected, right? So then, what if we okay, here's a bunch of noise, but then let's allow the agents to communicate with each other, and then give them kind of just like a few like upgrades, right? Like allow them to communicate. We'll inject a little bit of harmony into the of resonance into the environment. We'll create these agent trails, which is like we'll call it like a pseudo memory, like proto memory. Inject just like these a few subtle things into the environment here to give more oomph, basically, right? Is like the best way that I can put that. And then what happens here is very specifically, we like that little bit of oomph goes a long way, like within the system overall, right? And then so we can see these are like the memory trails. We see clustering efficiency go up. Bottom line, we see like a lot nicer metrics within this, and then some interesting, right? These metrics are a lot different than before. And then so let's run kind of this experimentation here. Like, okay, the oomph worked, right? Now let's put some more measurements like we did with that first experiment behind it, right? I wasn't sure if the oomph would work. And then so let's go through. And so I'm just like measuring and giving them again the environment different characteristics, and then measuring that, right? And then kind of the same thing that we're seeing here, and then we get emergence detected. We see like essentially we can see here that we have like our standard what we injecting into the system, and then we get deviation above the standard, right? And very significant deviation above the standard is what it's measuring there. And so we can see here that like very efficient like clustering efficiency is going up, harmonic. So the system is stabilizing itself, right? So emergence is occurring within this system, and then we do it again, same thing, right? We're getting emergence within the system, like clustering efficiency is going up, harmonic resonance is balancing. The system is self-balancing itself. We're getting communication within the system and a balance of communication. And then we just, we run this again, and we can see as we go through these simulations, this is actually, these effects are increasing. So we're getting, it's the system is getting more and more stable over time. It's organizing itself more and more over time, right? And then so going back to essentially the very this, right? Like, how does this occur? Like, how does slime mold solve this maze problem? How does it go through and find answers? Here, right? It's you just put agents into a system, and then you give them simple tools and rules to operate within the system. And then if you give them enough complexity to work with, they'll start finding ways to like compress the system and find something within the system. So they'll start clustering together. They'll start remembering their trails. There'll be effects that will occur and will get out of that system. And then when you put those effects together, you get a system like slime mold that is able to self-organize. And then so you go from here to there. And then so here's from step 0 to step 1, and proven out for you very explicitly and specifically. I'll leave a link very specifically to this collab notebook. It's a 100% open source. Do whatever you would like within this experiment. One layer before, emergence of Proto Intelligence from Entropy, compression, and harmonics. If you like this type of content, please like, subscribe. Thank you very much.